Hey everybody, today we've got a great video for you. We're going to be talking about the whole tone scale, how to derive triads from that whole tone scale, and how to use them in real life when you're soloing. Okay, so step one, we need to figure out what the whole tone scale is. This is one of the easiest scales you will ever study because it is literally only whole steps. So let's start by deriving a whole tone scale starting on concert D flat. So you can see and hear when you play a whole tone scale, it is a 6-note scale, which makes sense if you take the 12-note collection of half steps and remove all of the half steps from the scale, you're left with half of them, which is 6. Now let's take a whole tone scale starting on concert C. So what you may have noticed is that covers all 12 notes in the chromatic scale. We have one starting on concert D flat and one starting on C. That gives us all the notes. So really there are only 2 whole tone scales, and that's kind of nice. When we're dealing with a lot of other scales, we have to practice them in all 12 keys. This is only 2. Now you'll also notice the presence of only whole steps gives it that kind of dreamy, angular quality to it. In fact, you've probably heard this scale a lot when there's, say, dream sequences in movies. So this may be a sound that you are already somewhat familiar with. So now we have to get to work pulling some triads out of that scale. So if we go through and we play a triad based off of every note in the D flat concert whole tone scale, we get this. So what we start to realize is that every single triad in the whole tone scale is an augmented major triad. Now, if we dig in a little bit further, what we'll realize is that there's really only 2 augmented triads. Augmented triads are a string of major thirds. So for instance, a D flat augmented major triad is the exact same sequence of notes as an F augmented major triad. They both contain the notes D flat, F, and A, just in a different order with a different root. So this is kind of nice too. We only have 2 whole tone scales, and we could split each one of those whole tone scales into 2 augmented triads. This makes life pretty easy for us. Okay, step 3, we need to practice moving between those 2 triads that are present in the whole tone scale and start developing some fluency and some technique switching back and forth between both of those triads. So here are a couple exercises. Here's the first one. So all that one is up one triad, down the other, a very simple pattern. Here's another pattern you can try. So that one's a little bit more complicated, but basically what I've done is I've just thrown a direction change in the middle of the triad, and I'm still just doing the basic switching back and forth between the 2 triads in that D flat concert whole tone scale, but it's a little bit more complicated. It's gonna challenge you on your instrument a little bit more. That's another great pattern. Here's a third pattern for you. So again, just another triad pattern, just thinking about it in a different way. Now, you should practice probably about a half dozen of these patterns through both keys of the whole tone scale to prepare you and have fluency before you actually try to put this stuff over a tune. All right, step 4, we need to figure out where we can actually use these sounds in jazz standards or chord progressions that we're going to be playing over to show off our new skills using these whole tone triad pairs. Now, I will caution you, this is a very, very distinctive sound. It's not like a lot of the other sounds that we practice in jazz. So don't use this on every tune, every single chance you get. It will become boring pretty quickly. So figure out where you want to use this, and when you specifically want that whole tone triadic sound, use it, but don't overuse it. That's kind of like anything in the jazz language. Okay, so the first place that we can use this is a tune like Take the A Train. If you notice in the third bar of Take the A Train, we have a dominant 7 flat 5 chord. So this whole tone scale works perfectly over a chord like this. So any jazz standard where you see a dominant flat 5 chord, that's a perfect opportunity to use this whole tone scale. Here's a little 8-bar demo that I've prepared for you. You'll notice that the whole tone stuff is marked in red so that you could see exactly where I'm using that whole tone triadic material. Okay, second place you can use this. I love using this over dominant chords in certain places. So in this example, we're going to look at an F concert blues, and we're going to use these augmented whole tone triads over bars 3 and 4 going into measure 5, building up that tension before we hit the 4 chord. And then the other place that we're going to use it is in bar 8, the 6 chord, building up that tension and moving it into the turnaround, the 2 chord of the 2-5. So I'm using the whole tone scale based off of the roots of the dominant chord that I'm on. So in bar 3, I'm playing an F7 chord, and I am using the F whole tone scale using the triads that are based off of that F whole tone scale. When I get to measure 8, I'm utilizing a D7 concert chord. So I'm going to use a D whole tone scale. So I'm actually utilizing both whole tone scales in this blues, the F whole tone scale and the D whole tone scale. Here's a little example of how you can use this and some of the cool sounds you can get over the blues with these augmented triads. Okay, third example that we are going to go over is just a regular old 2-5-1. So what I'm going to do is over the 5 chord, again, over that dominant chord, I'm going to use these triad pairs to build tension before I release on 1. So again, the 5 chord is a G7 chord, so I'm going to be using the triads based off of a G whole tone scale. So in this example, I'm really staying very inside the chords on the D minor, the 2 chord. Then I'm playing outside using these whole tone triads, and then I'm resolving, going back inside when I'm playing that concert C major chord at the end of the line. Sounds like this. Okay, in our fourth example, we are going to really take it out and we're going to completely ignore the 2 chord on the 2-5-1, and we're going to play 2 bars of these augmented triads. This is really going to build the tension. There's a lot of tension over the 2 chord when we do this. A lot of these notes do not fit over that 2 chord, and that helps to really build that tension. And then the really important part that you have to remember is to release that tension when you hit that 1 chord. So this one's going to sound a little bit more out, but I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so there's a bunch of examples where you can use this stuff in real life in your solos. So remember, step 1, learn both whole tone scales. Step 2, pull the 2 augmented triads out of each one of those whole tone scales. Step 3, practice your fluency alternating between the 2 triads. Come up with some really, really cool patterns. Practice them on your instrument away from soloing. And step 4, start to see and identify parts of jazz standards where you can actually start to use this material. So if you've got any questions on this, please leave them in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think about the video. If you really enjoyed this and this is something new that you could start to use in your playing, please give us a thumbs up on the video. That really, really does help us to get out to more people like you looking for material like this. If you love the video, consider subscribing to the channel, turning on notifications. We do videos like this all the time. Most of all, thank you so much for watching. I'm going to end this video by playing a couple of courses over A Train and trying to use some of this material in certain strategic places. See if, when you're listening to me play, you can pick up on where I'm starting to use this sound. Hope you're all doing well out there. Hope you're all having a fantastic day, and we will see you on the next video. Bye, everybody.